on, everyone? Welcome back to another edition of Pistons Daily, where you can find daily content covering all things Detroit Pistons, Monday through Friday. As always, I'm your host. My name is Kyle Garrison. I'm over on Twitter at Kyle Garrison2, where I talk all things Detroit sports. So head over there, give me comments, questions, concerns, episode ideas. I'd love to hear from all you guys. Also, shout out to everyone who tunes in every single day. We are on the road to 2,000 subscribers. So if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way to help support the channel. With that being said, let's get into a Thursday edition of Pistons Daily. So first things first, let's talk about our skill of the day. We're going to get back into doing this segment. And I just wanted to talk about Jaylen Duren's overall impact on the Pistons offense. And I think it was pretty evident last year that when JD was in the game, not only are the Pistons more efficient overall at the rim, but just across the board as well. And I'll go into his advanced stats from cleaning the glass. And the team's effective field goal percentage increased by 2.4% with JD on the court, which was in the 89th percentile for centers. At the rim, the Pistons' efficiency improved by 3.7%, which was in the 87th percentile for centers. From mid-range, 1.9%, which was in the 74th percentile. And then from three, 0.4%, which was in the 60th percentile among centers. And obviously, the rim efficiency increases because he's one of the best lob threats in the league. He has Cade Cunningham as his primary facilitator, and he's also an incredible rim runner and is very efficient at the rim. When he gets offensive rebounds, he is able to put it back. He's able to use his strength, and he's very efficient around the rim. And so obviously, the Pistons are going to be a better team at the rim when he's on the floor. That correlates to one another. But when you look at the mid-range and the three-point efficiency increasing, that doesn't directly correlate with JD's offensive game or his scoring, but rather his passing and the threat he brings in the pick and roll, and as I mentioned, as a rim runner. So it's clear that when JD's on the floor, he's opening up more space because he's a great offensive rebounder, so teams are collapsing on missed shots. And when the Pistons do miss these shots, a lot of times Jaylen Duren is there for a second chance. The defense is scrambling. He's able to put it up, finish at the rim, or he can kick it out to open shooters, utilize that passing ability that we've seen increase from year to year. And you see other teams' defenders, they kind of get caught ball watching when Jaylen Duren is on that offensive glass. And there's a lot of times where he is able to kick out to open shooters from the mid-range or from three-point. And I think that has a lot to do with the Pistons' overall efficiency from pretty much everywhere on the court increasing when Jaylen Duren is on the floor. So I'm not just saying that Jaylen Duren is as impactful offensively as somebody like Cade Cunningham, but the little things that he does and his nose for the ball and just the overall development that we've seen from him cleaning the glass, finishing around the rim, being an unbelievable lob threat. I mean, Cade Cunningham and Jaylen Duren were the best lob threat from a guard to a center duo in the entire NBA last year, and it was evident. There was a lot of times where it was a dominant part of their offense, and I expect that to continue into this year. And I also expect the Pistons' overall efficiency to increase when Jaylen Duren is on the floor, just with what he brings as an offensive player. And I just really think it's encouraging to see a guy that's 22 years old, or 21 years old, doesn't turn 22 until November. So we'll be about a month into the season when he turns 22 years old. And he's just got such a high offensive ceiling. Again, it's just going to be a matter of what that improvement looks like on the defensive end of the floor to really see if he's going to garner a massive extension like many people have predicted. But moving on from Jaylen Duren, I wanted to talk about an article that I saw from ESPN where they basically just ranked what teams they think in each conference are contenders, what teams they think are in the play-in, and then what teams they think are on the bottom five, basically on the outside looking in. So I'll start from 15. They have the Washington Wizards, 14 Brooklyn Nets, 13 Charlotte Hornets, Toronto Raptors 12, Chicago Bulls 11. And then getting into the play-in group, they have the Pacers at 10, the Heat at 9, 76ers at 8, Celtics 7, Milwaukee Bucks 6. And then getting into the contenders, your Detroit Pistons at 5, Atlanta Hawks at 4, both predicted to have 47 and 35 records by ESPN. And then they have Orlando at 3 with 50 wins, New York at 2 with 54 wins, and Cleveland at 1 with 59 wins. I'm not going to read the actual article written here because it doesn't say a single thing about the Pistons being in that contender tier list. But at the end of the day, the fact that they're considered contenders is unbelievable. It's very, very encouraging. And I've been calling the Pistons Eastern Conference contenders all offseason long. And I firmly believe that that is the case. And they could take down any of the 4 teams above them, especially the Hawks and the Magic. They could easily beat those teams in a 7-game series. Well, not easily, but they would have a good shot of doing that. The Knicks, they took to 6 games last year. The Cavs, who, struggled in the playoffs last year, they did have some injuries. I think they're going to come back even better. But I do see a world where the Pistons can beat both of those teams in a 7-game series. And I'm just glad that ESPN and their writers, they do believe in the Pistons to do that, or to have the ability to do that. And when you're looking at, like I mentioned, the 4 teams above them, the Hawks, the Magic, the Knicks, and the Cavs, if the Magic finish ahead of the Pistons by a few games, I wouldn't be surprised. I think that it's very fair for them to win 50 games and the Pistons, let's say 47. But again, I could see the Pistons being a team that takes down the Orlando Magic, or a team that upsets the New York Knicks. The Cavs are a different story just because they're a little bit more experienced overall. They've got a great head coach. They've just got an unbelievable team overall, but they lost Ty Jerome this offseason. They did lose Karis LeVert last trade deadline. They've got some injuries with different players, some injury concerns. Darius Garland hasn't been healthy, so there's a lot of question marks surrounding that Cleveland team. And I think that the Pistons could end up playing them in a playoff series and giving them a run for their money. But they're just the fact, again, like we're talking about the Pistons being a contender in the Eastern Conference in itself is just so unbelievable. If you had told me this time on August 28th, 2024, that the Pistons would be considered Eastern Conference contenders over the Pacers, the Boston Celtics, and the Milwaukee Bucks, I mean, I would have audibly laughed. Like, I would have laughed in your face because it just wasn't really a expectation whatsoever. And just the fact that they went from 14 to 44 wins, put the league on notice, and now they're in the same talks as the Cavs and the Knicks and some of these other teams, and they're ahead of teams like the Pacers and the Celtics and the Bucks is very, very encouraging. And it's refreshing. So I'm excited to see what the Pistons can do this year. I think that they can be considered a contender once the year is over. But again, it's just going to be a matter of what they do in the playoffs, if they can stay healthy, and what Cade Cunningham's leap looks like. Because really, the Pistons' ceiling is, correlates to wherever Cade Cunningham can go. But let me know in the comments if you agree with this Eastern Conference tier list, and if you think the Pistons are too high, too low, or if you agree having them at 5 and in the top tier of Eastern Conference teams. But next topic we'll move on to here is Zach Buckley over at Bleacher Report gave a trade package and landing spot for every NBA team's biggest asset. And I'm going to give the Pistons trade, but just a quick heads up right away, I don't like this trade whatsoever. And I'm going to give you reasons why I don't like it. But first, I just wanted to read the reasoning behind the trade package overall. So Buckley has Ron Holland as the Pistons' biggest asset right now. And I tend to agree. If you're talking about a player who just isn't really proven yet, but has a very high ceiling, then I think Ron Holland's your guy on the Pistons. And they have the Pistons receiving Tyler Hero, the Miami Heat receiving Tobias Harris, Ron Holland, and a 2027 first-round pick, top 3 protected. So I'll just read what Buckley wrote. It'd be awfully quick for the Pistons to ship out Holland after making him the number 5 pick of the 2024 draft, especially after he crushed it in Summer League, but maybe they want to keep momentum climbing after last season's playoff breakthrough. Cade Cunningham still needs a co-star after all, and perhaps Detroit senses an opportunity to strike with Hero's future with the Heat up in the air. He'd be the second scorer and shot creator this roster lacks, plus his efficiency could find another level yet by slotting us alongside an offensive hub of Cade Cunningham's caliber. Miami, meanwhile, would maximize its long-term flexibility by avoiding Hero's next contract and getting Harris' expiring $26.6 million salary instead. Holland's hard work feels like a simple culture fit for the Heat, and the lightly protected future first would give them more ammunition for their next whale hunt. And I like Zach Buckley. I think he does a great job, and I understand where he's coming from, but maybe if Cade Cunningham was 30 and the window to compete was closing, but the good thing is he's not. Tyler Hero is an undersized 2-guard. He's not good defensively. He's a solid 3-point shooter, but giving up on Ron in year 2 would be a horrible, horrible idea. And we've talked about this multiple times, but Trajan would not do that. he would not even entertain it. Considering Ron is his only first-round pick he's had since being the president of basketball operations for the Pistons and entering his third year as that role, or his second year, in that role. I just don't see a world where Ron Holland is expendable, whatsoever. And again, no shot the Pistons give up another first-round pick because, again, Trajan Langdon only had a second-rounder last year. Even if this next year's pick is in the mid-20s, or hopefully it's in the 30s. I still don't think that Trajan Langdon would do that. There's just no way that he is going to be okay with giving up more draft capital. He's a guy that loves the young core, and I'm sure he's going to want to add to it. Considering this team's going to get expensive, you're going to be looking at the second apron in the next 3 years because of the extensions that Jaylen Duren and Asar Thompson and Ron Holland, and if you do end up extending Jaden Ivey, that's 5 players right there that you've extended off of their rookie deals who are going to be making, I assume, $20 million plus, with guys like Asar Thompson and Jaylen Duren potentially reaching that $30 million number. So I just don't see that being the case whatsoever. Tyler Hero, very expensive contract as well. I'm not sure what he's at, but I know he's $40 million plus right now. Well, actually, don't quote me on that. I believe he's $40 million right now. And I just don't think that he moves the needle for this team. If they added him, would they be a top 3 team in the NBA, an automatic championship contender? No, I don't think that they would be on the level of the Thunder or the Nuggets yet. And I would rather see the Pistons, if they were to make a big move and unload draft capital and assets like Ron Holland, I like it to be for somebody who is proven as a, proven all-star and all-NBA type player. I just don't think that Tyler Hero is like that. And I just don't think that he would fit great alongside Cade Cunningham because he does demand the ball in his hands. He'd be a great catch-and-shoot guy, but is giving up Ron Holland a first and Tobias Harris worth it to go out and get a solid spot-up shooter that can create his own shot every once in a while? I just don't think so. And again, I think Tyler Hero is a very good player. Don't get me wrong. But I just love Ron's all-around two-way game, and I think he's going to have a massive impact on this team going into year 2. And at 19 years old, I don't like this trade whatsoever. But again, if you haven't checked out Zach Buckley's stuff, he does do a great job. There's some really cool trade proposals on here. And they're not proposals. It's basically just landing spots for every team's best asset. And it's just a lot of young guys. And it's basically how every team can go out and increase their odds of winning right away or going and making a huge move that's going to kind of move the needle for them. But for the Pistons, just don't see this working out. But let me know in the comments down below or over on Twitter if you like this trade or if you'd like to see the Pistons move forward with Ron Holland and see what his future looks like. And then before we end the show here, I wanted to touch on just an article that I saw regarding Trajan Langdon and some of his comments from this offseason. I think it was Hunter Peterson wrote an article for The Athletic. And if you haven't checked it out already, it is a very, very solid article. It gives a great insight about what Trajan Langdon just sees this team going forward, what he sees in this young core. So definitely go check that out. But I'm not going to talk about the whole article, but rather just a couple different questions that Peterson asked that I really liked. So I'll start things off. The first question is, in Las Vegas, JB Bickerstaff mentioned something he's spoken about all season long in regard to Cade Cunningham's leadership style and how he brings players with him. According to JB, Cade doesn't take opportunities from anyone, he creates them. What quality have you noticed about him that he has contributed to last season's success and his success overall? Then Trajan responds, the leadership piece is something Cade talked about last summer, something he wanted to lean into and continue to develop. Being that guy on the team, whether it's bringing guys together off the floor or being that guy on the floor that drives the team on both ends. It resonates at the start of the season and I think throughout the season. You saw our guys continue to follow. He uses his voice well in terms of holding them accountable and driving them in the right direction when he needs to. He's also very supportive of them and allows them to be who they are as human beings, but also as basketball players. And then Peterson followed that up and he said, he asked, his leadership style was one of the main reasons you exceeded expectations. It seems like in recent years, when teams exceed expectations, they might feel the urge to make a trade or alter their roster. How do you go about ensuring last season was real and that players continue to develop without making any of those roster-altering moves? Trajan responds, for us, the reason we were most successful than expected last season was the environment, the locker room that we had. It was created through people, with staff, with the coaching staff, and with the players we brought in. the character as human beings and the level of players that we had, we just thought it was a good fit with everybody. That's one thing that we want to make sure we keep here, but also keep continuing to develop our young guys who we think are talented young players. We want to see what those guys' ceilings are. It's continuing to put players with them that can continue to help them grow, develop, and reach their potential. That's one thing we try to be as cognizant as possible of, which is something at times that can be challenging. Of course, you want to continue to get better, but we're very aware of what the timing of that is. We want our guys to continue to develop and at least get close to their ceiling or potential. Then maybe at that point is when we realize, okay, what is the proper player fit for these guys when it's really time to go? I don't think we truly understand who our players can be at this point. I just think it's too early for us to truly understand what the best way to press the proverbial gas pedal is right now. Sorry, reading is hard sometimes. So we're going to try to be patient with that and let our young guys continue to develop. And I mean, again, we've talked about this so many times. This is the main reason why Trajan Langdon has not made significant shifts in this roster, because he wants to see what he has in this young core before making any irrational decisions. And I mean, I 100% agree with the move. I 100% agree with the decision to do that. I know there were some people who were a little bit restless with this past offseason, but I'm telling you right now, this young core and the development that Trajan Langdon and JB Bickerstaff have brought to this team has been unbelievable. And there's a lot to be excited about going into this year, just based off of the growth and development of guys like Jaden Ivey and Jaylen Duren, and Ron Holland, Asar Thompson, Isaiah Stewart, Cade Cunningham, Marcus Sasser. The list goes on. I mean, it is going to be very, very fun to see what each of them do coming off of what? So they went 14 wins to 44 wins. So why can't this team continue to grow? Obviously, it's not going to be that magnitude, but they still can continue to get better. And we can see a leap from that 44-win season, from that team that took the New York Knicks to 6 games. That's not the ceiling of this team. They have so many places that they can go. And it's going to be dependent on, again, like Trajan mentioned, developing the young guys. And I really think it's important because in order to cultivate growth and to have a solid young core, you have to surround those guys with complementary pieces, and you hope you hit on 2 to 3 draft picks. But the fact is, the Pistons are looking at 5 or 6 lottery draft picks that are all looking like they're going to pan out right now. And that is just not something that a lot of franchises can say. There's a lot of teams out there who have not been good at drafting, especially if they're not getting the number 1 overall pick. When they fall to 5, 6, 7 late in that lottery, it's very hard to come up with the best possible player. And the Pistons have. Obviously, I know Troy Weaver was the reason behind a lot of those draft picks, but the development has come from JB and has come from Trajan Langdon's staff, and it's only going to continue to grow from here. So very, very excited for that. I'm excited for just Trajan Langdon's, he's so bought in on this young core, and he's never shifted what he said. He could have came into the offseason, said that they were going to buy into this young core and that they were going to not make any additions, and then gone on and made additions. But he didn't. You know, he had here and there, he pivoted from Malik Beasley, got Karis LeVert, got Duncan Robinson, let a couple other guys go, and this team is looking like it's rounding into shape. And obviously what he's seeing behind the scenes, he's clearly confident in. But I'm just looking long term, and I know this year would have been really fun to be a 1 seed and go out and to shoot for a 1 seed and go out and get a guy like Kevin Durant or Giannis Antetokounmpo. But sustained success is very difficult to do in the NBA because now you have these aprons and you have this cap space that you have to be weary about. And a lot of teams don't want to reach that second apron, so they have to make decisions. They have to let people walk, and the Pistons have a ton of extensions that are coming up. And you want to have team control over your young players going forward. So if you bank on one guy and he doesn't pan out and you end up letting, let's say, Ron Holland and Jaden Ivey walk because you can't afford them, you're going to be very, very disappointed that you did that. And you're not going to really get vaulted into contention by having one guy who comes in and maybe pushes you to a couple more regular season wins, but the depth might not be there, the defense might not be there, and then you're looking at a team who's trying to battle back to where they were instead of just coasting and continuing to grow from where they're at. But again, I love the trajectory that Trajan Langdon has this team on, and I think it's very encouraging to see him just invest in this young group, invest in this current core, and instead of going out and making these huge additions, but rather just amassing talent, which we've talked about. It's what John Beilein said that he thinks Trajan Langdon's doing a good job of. John Beilein's one of the best basketball minds that I've ever seen in my lifetime. So I trust what he says, and I do think that Trajan Langdon is doing a great job. But let me know in the comments your thoughts on Trajan Langdon moves so far in his time with the Pistons. If you think he needs to be more aggressive, or if you agree with me and you like to see his commitment to developing the young core and continuing to do that moving forward. But that's all I've got for you guys today on a Thursday edition of Pistons Daily. As always, like, subscribe, comment, turn on post notifications, and follow me on Twitter at Kyle Garrison 2. Once again, thank you all so much for tuning in every single day. With that being said, that is going to do it here for episode 53 of Pistons Daily, and I will catch you all next time.